right, welcome into the Game Time TBD podcast. I'm your host Brian Graham. We're going to get into top games of the college football season coming up this year. I've got my guest on, Paul, with us
Hey
today.
man, thanks for having me, brother. I appreciate it.
Absolutely, man. Welcome in, brother. I know it's been a while. To my two other members of the podcast, Troy and Dustin, recently have had two newborns, and I've got one on the way as well. So as a group, we're a little busy right now, but we're making it work. We just love to talk ball. So whenever we get the chance, and we'll be revving it up as we get into football season. But man, I'm excited. Unfortunately, we had an epic basketball game last night between Michigan and UConn. Michigan goes on a run late to kind of close it out. 69-63, and so begins the drought for 5 months until football season.
This is the worst time of the year, not only because it's cold, but you don't have any football, especially college football, the best in the world. And it's like that meme you see where the guy on it's Pablo Escobar is looking around. There's nothing to do, and he don't have no cocaine. And he's like looking around. He's all sad. That's what I feel like that 5 months with no good sports. At least we have a little hockey. But I'm ready for college football to ramp up again.
Absolutely, man. We got a little hockey, a little baseball. We got some stuff to watch, but I mean, we all know football. Football's king around here.
Oh, for sure.
So, man, we're gonna get into it tonight. We're gonna talk about the top 3 or 4 games that me and you have for the college football season. Got some huge matchups. I mean, we could go 10 deep with how many games there are, with how many storylines, all the new conference realignments over the past couple of years. But we're going to kind of reel it into 3, and we might do some other segments throughout the next couple of months. But overall, right now, as far as our top 3, what is your number one game that you've got that you're most looking forward to?
Man, for me, because it's an early game, second game of the season, I'm really big into Texas and Ohio State. Like, I've never really liked Ohio State, but these are the two most interesting matchups, or one of the biggest matchups, and I think it sets the tone for the college football season, but especially for these teams. Now, it set the tone for these teams last year. 14-7, they played at South Bend, and as we know, Peyton Manning had an abysmal game. Now, it's interesting though, because Texas is favored by 2.5 points for Vegas as of right now. This game is in Austin. Like I said, Texas was top 3 in the portal. They lost some guys, but they have guys and offensive firepower like Ryan Wingo coming back. They got gutted at running back, but they brought in Hollywood Smothers, who Bama lost out on. They brought in another great running back in Raleek Brown. Like I said, they also brought in Parker Livingston, a wide receiver out of Oklahoma, who was, to me, one of the most underrated wide receivers in the portal of the season. I wanted him for Alabama's. They also brought in a beast that a lot of people did not see throughout the year, but he was an amazing player. And if you watched him at Pitt, Rasheem Biles, he also killed single-handedly ECU in a game. I mean, destroyed them. And they also brought in a great Auburn wide receiver, Coleman, Cam Coleman, who's amazing. And so they really racked up on the portal. Now, that doesn't always necessarily mean wins when you look at teams like Texas Tech. That's very true. Like I said, we need to see more from the Manning guy. We got to see that quarterback out of him. We got to see a better consistency out of him to win the game. But they've got all the pieces there. They should have a favorable schedule and should make a run to the playoffs. Now, Ohio State also has Julian Sain coming back. Had a lot of great games. Had a lot of experience in the playoffs. Like I said, but Ohio State got gutted by the 2026 NFL draft, losing 4 first-round starters, middle of the defense, Caleb Downs, Sonny Styles, etc. They will be relying on young guys like Devin Sanchez and Kenyatta Jackson. And they also are going to be relying on sophomore running back Bo Jackson to come in. And they also were very high, I think they were number 5, number 6 in the portal as well, bringing guys in. But because of their defensive gutting and being in Austin, I think Texas will win, I think, and Texas, but needs to have a sharp game because I feel like this set the tone for their season last year, and it wasn't great. They were up and down. A lot of it had to do with Manning. But I will say they improved at wide receiver, they improved at running back, and they sure as hell improved at defense. So I take Texas for the win by probably 14. This will be. Wow. If Ohio State wins they will really have to play their behinds off to do this.
Yeah, man. And Talking about Ohio State, dude, they've got a tough schedule. They've got Indiana, they've got USC, they've got Oregon. I believe they have USC. I know they've got Oregon. I know they have Indiana and Michigan, kind of all in the back part of the year. But then at the front, you got Texas on the road. I mean, that is a gauntlet of a schedule. So if Ohio State makes the playoffs, I know they're the number one rated team right now, at least by ESPN metric standards, as far as recruiting rankings. If they even make it in the playoffs, to me, they are a dangerous team. And I mean, like you said, they've got Sayan coming back, Bo Jackson. They're losing a couple pieces. They have one of the top receivers in the country coming back. So I mean, you're losing Carnell Tate, but they're stacked. So this is a good. If they can squeak into the playoffs, they might be one of those teams that are the first 9-3 team. Of course, you've had a 3-loss team, with Clemson coming in a couple years ago, but as far as an at-large, they could be one of the first 9-3. Haven't seen that done yet, though, so assuming they wouldn't. But anyways, they've got a gauntlet of a schedule, so that is a pivotal game to open up the second week of the season. Pivotal for Texas too, though, because this is a huge opportunity for Sark to, kind of show that he's back, and they've had success. I mean, they won one playoff game, but it's kind of been a little up and down. Obviously, for Arch, it wasn't the season that everybody expected. So, good thing they open up with an easy game, and then you can get into that one at home. And then they've got Oklahoma a couple weeks after that. So, Texas is in the same boat. It's going to be a tough gauntlet for them too. But
Oh, for sure. And Sarkisian did mention, the last thing I'll mention is he said that this team and this reminiscent of the spring practice and going into the summer, he feels like it's equivalent to some of the big Bama teams that he coached for that won championships. He said the attitude, the mentality, the accountability from the players, it just everything. He said it really shaping up to be big. Now that's just talk, but he's really saying that he sees a huge difference between last year and this year, where the team's at, mentality and accountability from the senior leaders on that team.
Yeah, absolutely. So my first game that I've got on the list is LSU traveling to Oxford, week 3 of the season. You got Pete Golding, who's won 2 playoff games. He's won more playoff games than he's won his regular season games. Isn't that crazy? he's already got the recipe down, man. No, but I mean, had a great playoff run. I mean, after everything that happened with Lane Kiffin, you got to give Pete Golding props for what he was able to do, going into the playoffs and competing and almost making it to a national championship game. Ole Miss, I mean, come on. So, I mean, of course, you're not going to have Trinidad Chambliss back. Unfortunately, I would have loved to see him this year, but they'll still be an exciting team. And LSU traveling to Oxford, I mean, I can only imagine. I attended a Tennessee game where Lane Kiffin a couple years back went to Tennessee, and there was mustard bottles on the field, and that was years in between him leaving Knoxville. So, can only imagine what's going to go down in Oxford this go around after the recency of that. But I mean, they got a lot of players. LSU ranked 5th in the portal. Got a couple players. They got Sam Levitt coming from Arizona State, highly touted. I mean, got a huge NIL deal. I don't know. I mean, I'm not completely sold. I know he had a good couple years there at Arizona State, but LSU went out and spent a lot of money on different players. They got a defensive end, I believe, or defensive tackle out of Tennessee that only had a handful of sacks, and they went out and outbid him when Alabama was trying to get him.
He only had 1 sack for the year. I've mentioned that in so many podcasts. 1 sack for the year. He's making $1 million. It's like, okay.
So that was LSU's motto was Lane Kiffin. They backed it up. They gave him the Brinks truck, and he went out and threw the money everywhere. We'll see if that works. I don't know. I think they'll be successful, but they open up with Clemson. That's another huge game, not on my list, but that could be a sneaky game, especially if if LSU goes into Oxford 1-1, this could be an epic matchup. Ole Miss has a couple cupcakes, so they should be 2-0. But LSU, this could be a make or break, because if they start 1-2 with Lane Kiffin and he's already in the dirt, again, he's going to have the resources. I think he's going to have a successful career at LSU, but it'd be kind of funny for him to start off with a losing record. But on the other side, Pete Golding, I know there's a little drama between him and Dabo talking about Clemson, but this is a good opportunity for him. He's got a couple games to open up the season, and I think they were able to retain enough players to have some success. So it should be a great matchup, and I'm mainly just excited for that one, just for the antics of and the hype that's going to go around it. That'll probably be a college game day, atmosphere. So
Oh,
anyway,
for sure. I would love to have seen Chambliss play Levitt. Like, and to me, that would be one of the biggest games of the year.
mm-hmm.
I think it's a shame that we don't get to see that matchup. I think it's unfair, but it is what it is. It's the state of college football. I would really like to have seen that. Now, LSU went out there and it was like, I mean, they just shot money out of a fire hose to get all of these players. We know that the teams that have won the national championship almost the last 3 to 4 years are the teams that had the most continuity, which is me. I'm saying the teams that had players that played together 3 or more years that had the majority of those guys won championships. Now, we know Lane Kiffin will be successful. We know he's a great recruiter. He's great in the portal. He's great in high school recruiting. But it's going to be very interesting to see what he does with a cast of characters that come in, no matter how great they are single-handedly. Can they play together? Can you get the egos to work? And can you get the wheels spinning? Now, he's got a great staff. I do believe in him long term. Now, the thing that's hurting Ole Miss is not that they don't have a great team coming into this year, and they spent a lot of money in the portal as well. They got good backers. They don't have Trinity Chambliss, so that's a little concerning right there.
Mm-hmm.
So really, with all that together, I think it could be, and we don't know what truly they have each team going up. I think it'll be an exciting game. And it just the buildup, just the animosity, the hate, the angry Ole Miss fans coming in there, and you stole our coach and blah blah blah. And from what we saw from ex-Bama coaches that have been on multiple podcasts, they said Ole Miss offered them a hell of a lot more money per year, and they said we'll give you unlimited portal money, doesn't matter, whatever you want. And leading up, when the 5 years that he was the coach at Ole Miss, they gave him everything he wanted more, but he took Saban's advice because he knows LSU is one of those schools and states that in Louisiana that you don't need to recruit nationwide to be dominant and win championships. That's a fact. It's one of the top 3 jobs you can do that, like Texas or Georgia, or whatever, or even having USC if you can get the right coach. But yeah, it's just the build up to this one's, to me, I think is top 2 games of the year, honestly, just for the history, the drama, everything that goes behind that.
Yeah, man, and like you said, Ole Miss they ranked 14th on the portal. They got 4 4 stars that came in, so they got some talent that's coming in. It's just the
For
quarterback.
sure, they didn't drop much.
Yeah, quarterback position's a little unknown. So let me ask you, who's your number 2 pick?
Well, my number 2 pick, like I said, I know a lot of people don't like that. I mean, I'm gonna bag on both of them. I got Notre Dame versus Miami. Now, we know that Notre Dame they pulled off one against the playoff committee. They said, "Hey, we either are going to pay somebody a lot of money and buy beach houses, and you're just gonna, as long as we stay top 10, top 12, you're going to give us a playoff spot, not playing in a conference and not having a conference championship." Or they caught half the committee in the Epstein files. We haven't confirmed either, but that's what we're thinking. Hats off to them. They pulled it off, so good off to them. Anyway, like I said, it's a tough game. A lot of people kind of lean towards Miami because Notre Dame has a history of proverbially pooping the bed because they don't play a lot of good teams. When they get punched in the mouth, sometimes it's kind of tough. Now, Notre Dame has a Heisman candidate in Carr coming back. They also have one of the easier schedules in the country and fewer high stakes road games. Now, the Irish return dominant veterans, and like I said, they have a great running game. They play pretty darn good defense. But Miami, like I said, they still have a lot of talent. Now, they did get pretty gutted. They have a Darian Mensah coming out of Duke. He is a good quarterback. They still have Malachi Tony coming back. They have Mark Fletcher at running back coming back. So that's kind of shores that up. They have the additions in Cooper Barcate and Vicarious Jacobs coming in to help out. So that'll really help out. Like I said, they don't play a very tough schedule either. Like I said, Notre Dame plays, I'll go through this quickly. They're going to play Wisconsin, Rice, Michigan State, Purdue, North Carolina, Navy. Then they play Miami November 7th. That's the toughest game by far. They do play BYU, Boston College, SMU, Syracuse, and Stanford. So this game, in my opinion, I know they don't play nobody, and also it's one of the biggest games for them because if you lose this game to the playoff committee, it makes you look very bad on both teams.
Mm,
Now, going quickly through Miami's schedule, they got Stanford, Florida A&M, Wake Forest, Central Michigan, Clemson, which is a tough game,
mhm.
Florida State, Pittsburgh, North Carolina, Notre Dame November 7th, Duke, Virginia Tech, and Boston. So really, for either team, we know this is setting the tone. I think Notre Dame's going to take it. I think they got more talent. Your big guys on that line, that defensive line of Miami's that was absolutely monstrous, are gone. They're
Mhm.
going to the NFL. Like I
Ruben
said, you're
Payne.
losing Bain. You're losing Akeem Mizador, if I'm saying that right.
Mhm.
They're first round guys. They're some of the best guys I've ever seen. And that's probably that Miami defensive line is better than anything I ever saw at Bam. I'm just gonna be honest. Even the years we were dominant,
Mhm.
that was the most nasty defensive line I ever seen. Honestly, if anybody didn't have Mendoza at quarterback, Miami wins that. Like he
Yeah.
was that good. That was the main difference. Now, to me, this is the most interesting game because really they only play each other. That's the only good game and the hard game they have. It's going to be at Notre Dame. We got touchdown Jesus, all the lore, the history of Notre Dame. This is big for them. They really need a good win. I don't care if they have a guaranteed playoff spot. The pictures, the eyes of the nation are on them, and whoever loses that game, they're going to get hounded for weeks because they're going to basically say, "You had one game. You had a one game season. You had to do. That's it. You can sleepwalk and win that one game." So for me, this game has a lot of intrigue to it, and it's going to be a behind clincher for both teams because they know it's a lot of bad juju if whoever loses that game. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, and one thing you keyed in on, I mean, Notre Dame has 14 returning starters. That's one of the top in the country, and it's quarterback. That's really important. You have four offensive linemen returning. So the production that you're retaining on offense is the line, and that's the most important thing. So eight starters on defense. So Miami, like you said, they're losing a lot of depth. They're losing a lot. They're losing Carson Beck. Yeah, Notre Dame's losing their running back Jordan Love, but I think you can make up that production. I mean, he's a great athlete, but you might see a little bit of a dip. But again, they have a great offensive line that's coming back. So I mean, I'm not too worried about them. They only have two tests. I mean, I would if I was a betting man, I would go put money on Notre Dame to make the college football playoff. Also because if they're ranked within the top 12, regardless of any group of five teams that are around them, they automatically get in and they hop whoever. So if that would have happened last year, they would have gotten in over Miami. It's kind of crazy how they were able to get that. So they probably won't ever join a conference at this point. But I yeah, they're BYU and Miami. That's Notre Dame's schedule. And but we're not talking about their playoff odds. We're talking about that game specifically. I do think at home the revenge factor for losing to them and not making the playoffs because of Miami, all that stuff combined. I mean, I think Notre Dame's gonna take that one for sure. But it should be an exciting game, and it'll be cool the intrigue around it, especially if Miami is making a run. Now, of course, Miami could lose a couple games and not be the same team, and then it's kind of there'll be a little intrigue to it. I'm sure Miami won't fall off a cliff, but I really do hope that Miami and Notre Dame are kind of on a collision course to see who's going to make the playoff. That would be really exciting coming off of last year.
Well, I got a big question for you. Building up to this game, I'm kind of referring back to some 30 for 30 ESPN on this. There was a documentary where a young man at Notre Dame used to make big T-shirts back in the day before licensing and all that stuff, and he made a shirt back in the 80s and early 90s. Miami and Notre Dame always played every year. It was a big game late in the year, November as well, which is kind of harkening back to this time and nostalgia for everybody that watched games like me as a kid in the late 80s with my dad. Do you think any shirts will get made that say Catholics versus convicts? Do you think that's a possibility this year or not?
We might. I mean, a lot of AI going around. Maybe some people get kind of creative with their algorithm and make something cool. We might see something.
No, I would be funny to see some crazy shirts, but yeah, I'm definitely that's one of the top 5 games of my must watch games. If I'm picking 5, I got to watch. There's definitely one of them in there for sure.
Yeah, and so one of my second game is going to be Ohio State playing at Oregon. I think that, or I'm sorry, I misread that. Oregon playing at Ohio State.
Ooh.
Um, that's also a rematch from 2 years ago. They didn't play last year, but 2 years ago they split the series. Oregon won a nail biter in the regular season, and then of course made the college football playoff. Ohio State blasts them out of the water in the Rose Bowl, and the rest is history. But so it's a rematch from that. It's a little bit later in the season. Um, Ohio State does play Indiana and USC, and the USC game is on the road before going into this game. So, like I said earlier, Ohio State's got a gauntlet of a schedule. I mean, you got Texas, you got Indiana, you got USC, and then you play Oregon. I mean, that if they make it through
Mm.
that, I mean, that's one of the best teams of all time. So,
Mm-hmm.
I think one of the biggest reasons, I mean, besides it being two, Oregon's got a lot of players coming back. You got a quarterback, on the potential for a Heisman, and coming off a great year. Dan Lanning's an awesome coach. I think that's one of those games where I think Oregon's probably going to be fine going into that, but if they do slip up once and then slip up to Ohio State, that could be a kind of a kick you out game. But I think Ohio State, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if they have two losses going into this game with the gauntlet of the schedule they have. So this game, I would imagine they're going to be a two-loss team going into this, and this is one of those games where you got to win, and and so I just think it's going to be a pivotal matchup. Oregon does play USC in September, and then they do have Michigan the week after Ohio State. So good thing about the Big Ten this year is that the schedules are great. At the past couple of years, the front heavy teams have kind of had an easy schedule. I don't know if that was done on accident or whatnot, but they do all play each other this year. So some of these teams are going to get knocked out. So that is one thing. Do you have anything about this matchup, Oregon Ohio State?
Yeah, it's very intriguing to me. I still feel like I don't know how you feel, but I feel like Oregon, they're always in the hunt. They have great teams. Like I said, Dan Lanning is an amazing coach. Would have loved to have him at Bama. He was a great coach at Bama when he's there. He's got all the money with Phil Knight. Like I said, so they have the resources, they got the team. They're just, I feel like they're always on the cusp, right? They're right below really making a deep run, right? And it's obviously not for money, it's not for talent, not for coaching. And I really would like to see them take that next step. I've always been kind of a semi Oregon fan. I like to watch them from afar or whatever until they play the SEC, and then I want to get them smashed. But I like them. I like what they do. I like their style of play and their offense and their toughness. And I really would like to see them get a really good win against Ohio State, to be honest. I don't think they'll do it this year. I'll just be honest from what I'm seeing from Ohio State and what they have and all that. But I really would like to see Oregon. Deep down, I'm kind of rooting for Oregon. I'd really like to see them make a big move, and kind of like, hey, we're here. Like, hey, we can make a run. I'd like to see that from them because I don't know in the playoff era if we've really ever seen a team, except for one of the first 2 or 3 years that the playoffs first started, they did make a run and they got to play Ohio State and they got busted in the national championship in like 2016, the 2016 national championship, or 2015 going into 16.
Yeah.
So I really would like to see them make a run. I really would like to see them take that next step forward and everything. And that's always something I'm kind of rooting for. So yeah, I'm kind of rooting for them to see them do that. I don't think they'll do it this year, in all honesty, but like I said, you have a good sack on Julian Sayin, and the whole complexity of the game changes, and who knows?
Yeah, and again, Oregon's one of those teams with 14 starters coming back, 8 on defense, 6 on offense, multiple receivers coming back, and then Dante Moore. So I mean, they've got a good chance to have a good year. I think they will probably be a playoff team. I think they've got some winnable games in there, but 10-2 or better is kind of what I'm thinking as of now.
For sure.
But let's wrap it up on this segment. What is your third game that you had on the list for us?
Yeah, my third game, it's kind of a bust here. I picked Georgia versus Oklahoma, and I gotta say, Georgia's already leading by the Vegas polls by 2-point leads. Georgia is one of my secret teams, dark horse to win a championship this year, and I'm always saying that because talent-wise, Georgia has 14 to 15 returning starters, leading the SEC in experience. Obviously, the number one is Gunnar Stockton at quarterback, Nate Frazier at running back. They have several defenders anchoring the team, top nationally in returning production. They do have a manageable schedule in the SEC, so that's one thing that's going good for them. Oklahoma, like I said, they are returning. Oklahoma is returning 14 starters, 8 on offense and 6 on defense for the season. Now, what's going to hurt them, Oklahoma, is in this matchup is they only have 2 returning starters on that defensive line. Now, that returning defensive line was their bread and butter last year. That single handedly helped them beat Bama and quite a few other teams. And they were, to me, one of the most brutal defensive lines in the country. They have, I know everybody's saying, oh, John Mateer's coming back. Well, that's cute, but he also accounted for almost 2.5 interceptions a game and also single handedly lost them big and close games down the stretch. That is not debatable. We all saw that. Now they do return all starting 5 offensive linemen and kicker Tate Sandell. So that is big, right?
Tate
Now
Sandell.
there's, oh yeah, like I said, so that's huge, and they're in it. I don't think they'll win it, but this helps them. But the bad thing about this too for them is, they have some tough marquee road matchups. They got against Michigan, Florida, and Georgia. That's another gauntlet in all of itself.
Gosh.
Just Florida and Georgia is those blue collar games you got to bring 2 chin straps to because it's brutal. They're just awful games. So I don't think they'll win this game. It is intriguing, like I said, because I think it sets the tone, especially for Oklahoma. And to me, it is a must win for Oklahoma. Like I said, but then again, like I said, it's the Oklahoma is not returning the cabinet empty, minus that defensive line. So, if they bring in some guys, they did bring in some guys, like I said, in the portal, which is huge for them. But I gotta take Georgia in this one. And like I said, Georgia is one of my top 2 dark horses, really, to go win the national championship. They were last year for me. They didn't do it, but I think they have so much talent and depth and guys that have played together. They're one of the top teams, in my opinion, to go win a championship. But Oklahoma, they're not a bunch of scrubs. Like I said, they're bringing a lot of guys back. The thing I think that's going to hurt them is if they can't immediately replace some of that NFL talent off that defensive line, they're in trouble.
Yeah, and like you said, they're actually the number 2 team, the 1 and 2 teams as far as returning starters. So quarterbacks returning as well. So that's an intriguing matchup. Yeah, definitely the Michigan game is going to be a must win for Oklahoma. I mean, you're kind of screwed if you start out the season with
Yes.
loss. I mean, yeah, Michigan, Georgia, and Texas all in the first 5 games of the season. That is a gauntlet. Games in Georgia, in Athens. I think I give the edge to Georgia as well, just because they've got a lot of returning starters on defense, and Kirby just knows how to lead a team defensively. And I think the book's out on John Mateer. I mean, I think he's going to be healthy, so that's going to be nice. But he's too turnover prone, and you're not gonna. I don't think you're going to be able to beat Georgia just kind of throwing it around the yard like that.
I will say this though, Mateer, it reminds me a little bit. Now he's pretty quick on his feet, but he reminds me the way he throws picks. The last year that Carson Beck was at Georgia, he was like a stone statue throwing picks, right? And we didn't have a lot of confidence in him getting paid $9 million for
Yeah.
1 year at Miami. We were kind of like, you sure about that, Miami? You sure about that? We were just like, Now, evidently, he had better coaching at Miami. I'll just say it. He performed way better. He did great things. Now he pooped it up at the end, one of the last drives at the national championship. And you're like, oh, here comes Carson Beck again. Now, Mateer, with a little bit of coaching, a little bit of help, and some other pieces around him, or maybe he doesn't feel like he's got to go out there and win every game, could turn it around. And I'm not saying he couldn't. Now, right now, it doesn't look great, but we just never know. Every year is a new year.
Exactly. And the final game that I've got on my list, it's not necessarily something that pops out on the regular mainstream fair weather fan, but if you're really into football, especially the SEC, you're going to love this matchup. It is Florida going to Auburn. And this is a game that used to be somewhat of a rivalry because of the divisions that the SEC had. But whenever we added Missouri and Texas A&M, this one kind of went by the wayside. This is the first meeting since 2019 when Florida actually won, and the first time since 2011, I believe, that it was played at Auburn. So the Florida has not gone to Auburn since 2011, or at least Auburn hasn't beaten Florida since 2011. So the fact that they've only played twice, the previous game from that was 2007. I believe that was a walk-off field goal for Florida or for Auburn, if I'm not mistaken. The fact that this game's only been played 3 times since Nick Saban got to Alabama, I mean that's kind of crazy. So this is I know I've talked to a couple Auburn fans, and this is one that they've been waiting on, kind of bringing back an old rivalry. So it's kind of fun to see these matchups, and I think next year we get for the first time we get Georgia going to Texas A&M, so kind of something similar. Not a lot of history with that one, but it's kind of cool to see some games come back with history, just like a couple years ago when we got Texas A&M at Texas. So it's kind of cool. I know you might want to touch on that one a little bit. That's an intriguing game, of course. Just at the end of the year, Texas A&M.
Yeah, at this point, it's honestly a coin flip who could win that game because both got new coaches and new quarterbacks, and everything is gutted for both teams, so it'll be kind of like a clean slate and a new start. I do remember this game. It does have nostalgia for me because I remember this was kind of an early fall game in the early 90s. I used to watch football with my dad in the early 90s, mid 90s. And so this was kind of a marquee game for both teams. And both teams in the 90s under Spurrier were really good. And like I said, so it was Auburn was very good then. And so it was a throwback game to the early Jefferson Pilot days. If you are even old enough to remember those days, I barely do, but Jefferson Pilot, this would be one of the Jefferson Pilot games, but it was a one heck of a game, and you would tune in at 11 Central just to watch it because it was brutal. I mean, they came with 8 chin straps and they were ready to go, and multiple helmets, and just, I mean, the hits were just crushing because both teams hated each other with this old rivalry. And it's nice to see it coming back because for me, is being an old guy, almost mid 40s, I remember watching these games as a kid and was just enthralled with Florida and Auburn playing each other. And it was a big set the tone game for both teams going into the meat of the season, because this was one of the September games going into the October. So it was huge. And I'm glad you brought this game up because it does put a smile on my face and kind of harken to old times and on the old SEC. And so it's going to be a fun one, regardless if either team is dog poop. It's going to be fun for me to watch this game, honestly.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I'm excited. Man, I'm so excited for football. Well, hey, we've only got a minute left. Guys, if you want to check us out, we're going to end this segment and check us out on the next segment that we do where we break down just a brief expert on the Alabama football season. So thank you guys for watching. Please subscribe. Please like. Check out Paul's channel. Where can they find you, Paul?
Tide Talk with Webb.
Yes, sir. We'll see you on the other side.